I work with Amend and I run their telephone counselling service. We also do Skype counselling. And I'm very aware that probably all of you will be in very different places with your condition at the moment. That some of you might be fairly newly diagnosed, some of you might have been living with it for a long time. So I'm aware that you might all be in quite different places with your condition. So what I'm hoping to do really is give you some pointers, I suppose, as I'm talking about some of the things that we do know seem to help in living with your condition over time. Some of these might seem quite obvious to you and you might go, oh yeah, I know that, yeah, that's I'm already doing that. And some of them you might think, well, that's interesting, I hadn't quite thought of it in that way. So I'd encourage you, particularly because it's after lunch, just sort of sit back and relax for a bit, and I'd encourage you to take away from this whatever feels useful. If there's anything that you think that's not for me, just feel free to leave it here too. Okay, does that sound all right as a plan? Okay. Challenge 1, getting the first slide up. Okay. Well, one of the things I'm very aware of in talking to you guys really is being aware that, you know, for most of us, life is busy enough already. We're holding down jobs, we might be managing families, there might be all sorts of other things going on that we're managing. And somewhere you have to find room in the midst of all that for ACC. And that can be very challenging. It can be challenging physically because it's tiring. It's tiring on all sorts of different levels, not just physically in terms of what might be coming up in your body, but tiring emotionally. Living with the fact of having cancer or having had cancer, being in remission, it being around at some level, in and of itself takes its toll. It's also tiring physically because one of the people I was talking to on the phone coined a really good term, I think, which I'm going to share with you. And she said, you know what? She said, I think I've got appointment fatigue. I don't know if it's an actual condition, but I'm pretty sure I've got it. And that seemed to me a really good way of coming at it, that you can have an awful lot of appointments that kind of interrupt your life, interfere with your life. You have to get to, you have to come back from. It's very intrusive into your ordinary lives. That's what I was talking about in terms of practically. There's a lot to manage in terms of having a condition like this. Someone was saying to me, I feel like I'm living my life around a schedule of what pill I need to take when. If I go on holiday, I end up having to have a little kit where I'm saying what I need to take when, because I need to remember when to do it in terms of being in another time zone. That's really annoying. So it's these things that kind of really interfere with just being able to get on with the business of life. Emotionally, we've talked about already. We'll talk about that a bit more. And one of the things that I'm always really aware of when you're living with any ongoing condition, living with any illness really, is that it's not just about the person who's got it. It affects all of you in different ways. I often say that if you're in a couple relationship, you're both living with having cancer. You've both got it, but you've got it in different ways. It's part of your life, it's part of your family, part of your relationship. And that can be very challenging. And you can have different feelings about that according to whether you're the one who's got it in you, so to speak, or whether you're living with someone who's managing this condition. But the good news is that there are ways to help cope. It is challenging, but we are actually very creative and adaptive as people. And we do find ways of managing very challenging situations. And you're already doing something really important by coming here today, which is by meeting up with other people and getting to know more about your condition. You're already empowering yourselves to live and work with this condition better. Are you with me so far? Okay. So I've tried to sort of put this in a framework of 7 habits of living well with ACC. Now, it's not a test. I'm not going to sit here and go, are you doing this one or not? But it's again back to thinking, is this something I need to kind of focus on a bit more in my life, or am I already working well here? Self-awareness is something that I think is really, really key when you're living with a hormone condition, because the number of times I hear people say to me, God, the most frustrating thing is I don't know if how I'm feeling is to do with my hormones, something going on physiologically, whether I'm feeling this way because of something that's coming on in my body, or whether it's how I'm feeling about living with this condition and its impact on me in another way that's causing me to feel as I do. So you will get a bit of a crash course in living with this condition about trying to work out where something's coming from. Practical self-care. How well you look after yourself physically and practically during this. Acknowledging and allowing difficult feelings. And this is something I think we find really hard in our culture. One of the things I'm often really aware of is that people often feel very ashamed about not just being able to get on with it. You know, this sort of British stiff upper lip gets very into our psyche somewhere. And it can be very difficult to feel okay about saying, you know what, right now, today, I'm really struggling. On another day, you might feel all right and it's sort of receded into the background a bit more. But some days, it can feel right here and it can feel quite a lot to deal with. Learning about your condition. That's part of why many of you are here, I imagine, today, that learning about your condition is really empowering. Working with your team is very key to how well you process and deal with your condition, and that can be challenging in its own right. I'm sure it came up this morning that the relationship you have with your medical team is very key, and it is a relationship, and there will be some people in your team that you get on better with than others. I'm hoping it came up this morning that sometimes it's okay to say, actually, I'd like another opinion, or I'm not sure it's working between us. Can I go somewhere else? And that's really important, that you feel all right about doing that. You're not here to look after your medical team. It's the other way around. Finding your tribe. I think this is a term that Joe coined and I nicked, actually, because it seemed quite a good way of putting it, which is that one of the things that can be very difficult about living with an unusual condition is how isolated and on your own you feel. You say something like you've got breast cancer and someone will go, oh, yeah, I know, my friend had that or my sister had that, and you're sort of in a club in a way. With a rare condition or an unusual cancer, it's much more disorientating because it's harder to find people to say, what's it like for you? How have you been dealing with it? Have you been offered this treatment? Has this happened to you? You don't have that kind of support ready-made around you, which is again why it's so important days like this, and in the days of the internet that we have now, so fantastic that you can join up with other people who you can talk with in that way. Helping others help you. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a few moments. Okay, so I've talked about this a bit already. Really understanding where something is coming from is absolutely key. Why you are feeling what you do. And when you have a condition like ACC, I think the temptation is, because we get so focused on our bodies, to think that every difficult feeling might be coming from something inside. Yet we are mind-body linked. I'm sure, can many of you remember when you did exams at school? Did you get the butterflies in the tummy feeling? Did you get the feeling sick? Did you get going a bit hot and a bit funny? How we feel about what we're doing affects, us holistically. And it can be a really difficult art to know where something is coming from. And of course, when you're diagnosed with a condition like cancer, then the focus becomes on your body. We need to find out what's going on in your body. And of course, that's very helpful and important at one level, but it can kind of skew your perspective a bit. So I suppose what I do is I bring in Yes, it might be to do with what's going on with your body. Could it also be to do with how you're feeling about things at another level? So what I encourage you to do is always think, is this a body thing? Is it a mind thing? Is it a bit of both? Okay. One of the things I think is hugely important when you're living with an ongoing condition is that it does change things. And it's very hard sometimes to accept that it does change things. That there might be times when you're not able to do things in quite the same way as you did before. And coming to terms with that can be really disappointing. There may be many times when you can get on with things in exactly the same way as you did. But there will be times when you can't. And being able to somehow accept your limitations, either because of how you're feeling or because of treatment or because of surgery, is actually quite important. It can feel a relief. A lot of energy can go into fighting that. I don't know if I'm being overly sort of gender split on this, but one of the things I have noticed is that women in particular find it very difficult to say no, to sometimes say to friends or family or colleagues, you know what, I'm just not sure I can do that right now. Men do it too, so I don't want to get too split on that, but learning to say no is a really important task for you in living with this. Eating as well as possible. I know that sounds terribly obvious, but it's something that so easily goes by the wayside. Jill's giggling in the back because she's...
Just have loads of cheers.
Yeah. We were saying at one of the conferences we went to, and it was there were loads of diabetic surgeons there, and we were saying how ironic it was that the entire food stuff on was donuts and biscuits and crisps. So there's a little bit of kind of wonky thinking here, I think, in the field about how we look after ourselves. But there is a lot, we know that what we put into our bodies affects how well our bodies are functioning. And it's just trying to put it on your radar that eating well will support your body to function as well as possible. Particularly if you have issues around blood sugar levels, they can really affect your mood. So just sort of being mindful of that, how much is my mood affected by what I'm eating and when, can make a really big difference. Exercise when you can. What we know is that when you exercise, you release those feel-good hormones. And it's often the last thing you want to do if you're feeling down or you're feeling physically a bit unwell. I'm sure everyone here has thought, oh, I could go for a walk, or I could go to the gym, or I could go out and do something, but it's so warm and comfortable here. Do I really have to? But sometimes if you can just push yourself to get out, get some fresh air, get some sunshine, do a little bit of exercise, that can really lift your mood as well. And at the physical level, of course, the more you keep moving and the more you keep things working around your body will still be wanting to work with you. It'll still be wanting to heal you. I feel very much of the mindset that our bodies are inclined towards health. You've got a blip going on here, you've got a problem, but there's the whole rest of your body that hopefully is trying to go, yeah, we can deal with this. Let's try and deal with it together. Make time for fun. Now, I'm saying this even though it sounds really, really obvious, but one of the things that it is just an absolute drain is you might go through periods where it feels like all you can think about is having cancer and its effect on your life or your relationships or those people around you. And you need time off from that because it's very draining. So finding time to go and do things that might take you away from thinking about that is hugely important. Even if it's just doing something manageable like, you know what, I'm going to go and have a really nice bath. I'm going to go and see that friend I haven't seen for a while. I'm not going to worry about doing the washing or the cleaning or this or that or the other. I need to go and have some fun. And that's a really important way of looking after yourself. And it can feel difficult when you're dealing with so many other things that are going on. You can so tell we're post-lunch, can't you? Everyone's going, oh, excuse me. Okay. The other thing is really make the most of the days when it's been a struggle to keep going. And there will be days like that when you think, actually, all I've been able to do today is hold myself together a bit and get through. And those are the days in particular when you need to get to the end of the day and you need to say, well done me. And even if that's all you've done for the day, you've done the biggest and most important thing there. Never mind everything else. Getting yourself through the day and going, I made it. I did it. Even though when I got up this morning and keeping going was the hardest thing, I've done it. Congratulate yourself. Celebrate it in some small way, whatever that might be, because it is hugely significant. I've said this already, learn to say no. I often say this quite a lot, and it's partly because I'm often saying it to myself. So I might repeat it a few times because I'm trying to get it into my head too. Okay, looking after yourself emotionally. Emotional work takes physical energy. You're all working hard just by virtue of the fact of having cancer or having had cancer, even if it's not active at the moment. One of the things I often say to people is like, we all have a sort of like a little internal capacity here, which is called dealing with stuff. Okay, this is our dealing with stuff container on the inside. Now, just by virtue of the fact of having cancer, your dealing with stuff capacity is already a bit topped up. Okay, so on every day, on every basis, part of your dealing with stuff container is already got stuff in it, to put it bluntly. Then something happens, like your car breaks down. Oh, a bit more stuff. Then you get a phone call from a family member and they're not doing very well. They've had a row with someone. Then your boss at work says, oh, by the way, could you just could you get me that paper to me tomorrow, because I really need you to do that. Then a bit more goes in. And then you go home and you find that the dog's pooped all over the kitchen floor. And all of a sudden, you're nearly at overflowing. Now, you'd have had a bit more room in that container without a big chunk of it being taken up with dealing with cancer. So you just need to be aware of that you might be a little bit nearer the top than some other people about getting overwhelmed. You just need to acknowledge that and just sort of check in on yourselves again, now and again. Am I reaching the top here? Do I need to kind of try and get rid of something, try and not deal with something, try and say no, because it'll help. I've got to try and put that down now. Okay. Learning to live with uncertainty is a huge thing. You will get a crash course of this from the moment that you're diagnosed. And it's a really tough aspect. And there's no way of making it easier apart from me to say, you do get better at it. It's like you sort of develop muscles for it over time. When you first get diagnosed and there's all this, should we treat it like this? Should we treat it like this? How are we going to do this? Shall we do that? And that uncertainty continues. But actually, over time, it's a bit like your uncertainty muscles get stronger. And sort of something that felt really heavy at the start feels a little bit easier to bear as you go along. Does that make sense to you? Do you see what I'm saying? Try to accept your feelings, not fight them. We're terribly good in our culture about saying, I shouldn't be feeling like that. And sometimes I say to people, well, why not? You know, if you feel something, you feel something. Some feelings are much more difficult to have than others, but there will be a lot of feelings around when you're dealing with this condition. Find ways of expressing them. Go and have a really good thump of a pillow if you're feeling really irritated. Go and say to someone, actually, you know what? I need to have a bit of a cry. Can I do that with you? Sometimes people find things like taking up art, writing, walking, music, whatever. Just find out whatever it is that works for you. When you're feeling a bit stuffed up with feelings you really don't want to have, how are you going to get them out? Where are you going to go? Learn to recognise your stress signs. And I'm going to talk about mindfulness in a minute. But the other thing I was going to say is allow yourself to say to other people, I'm not doing so well. It is all right to say that. Find the people in your circle of family or friends who are okay with you saying that. Because not everyone will be. Some people will want to sort of fix it or ignore it or make it go away. But start clocking. Who are the people who are okay when you say, I am struggling a bit? Make a note of them. You need to have them around. Now I'm aware we're running out of time already, but I'm going to go through some of the difficult feelings that can be around. I'm not going to go into them very much, but just so that you can sort of note, and as we go through, think, oh yeah, I know that one. Anxiety, worry and fear. I would imagine there's not anyone here who hasn't felt that at some point. Anger. Having cancer is not fair. There's no way to dress it up. It's miserable. And if you could not have it, you wouldn't. And it's not fair. Why you? Why not someone else? It's tough. Unfairness. Envy. Sometimes being on the receiving end of envy. Oh, you've got a special cancer. Someone talked to me about the other day about her brother who had a particular form of cancer and she had a different one. And she said it was most bizarre. It's like we got into some sort of competitive cancer thing. She said it was just peculiar and she was quite unnerved by it. Loss. Things won't necessarily be as they were. Often when I talk to people, one of the things they say is, I just want to be normal again. And somewhere it's about finding a new sort of normal, and that can take a bit of time. Loneliness. This is a biggie when you've got a rare cancer. It's great that you can get together in places like this, use the internet, use Facebook forums. Even if you think, I don't need to right now, just knowing they're there can be really helpful. Sometimes things can feel very dark. You might feel really despondent, really despairing. That's when it's really important to reach out to people like me, to people like Amend, to people at ACC. Don't stick with those feelings on your own. And guilt. You know, often when you have something like this, you can feel really guilty about how's it affecting those people that I love or those people around me. Now I imagine you'll all know these to some extent, but we all know that feelings, if we're not talking about them, can come out in all sorts of imaginative and circuitous ways. Does anyone know the sleeping problems? Tossing and turning, can't get to sleep. Or equally, I can't stop sleeping. I just want to sleep all the time. That's so much easier. Eating, drinking more or less than usual. So whenever we feel a bit worried, either we're sort of, reaching for the chocolate and the biscuits cupboard, or suddenly we've got no appetite at all. Becoming snappy and irritable. I'm sure nobody here does that. It's hard to switch off or relax. You just feel like you can't settle in yourself. Feeling exhausted all the time. Feeling preoccupied. Feeling stressed out or overwhelmed. Feeling out of control. Tearful. Sometimes we get more of those funny body symptoms. We get headaches all the time. We feel a bit sicky. You don't feel quite yourself. Or you get lots of tummy upsets. That can be a sign. Tummies are very good places, which is complicated with a condition like this, for carrying worry, carrying anxiety. So how might you look after yourself? I will keep boringly saying this, but talk to someone who knows you. Talk to someone who cares about you. In the act of talking something through, things often become a lot clearer. Ask for support. Can you not do certain things? Can you palm them off on someone else? Can you delegate? Can you say, you know what, I can't run up a party dress for my 3-year-old for the assembly tomorrow morning. Could you do it? I don't think I can get my car to the garage for service. Could you run it down for me? Ask for help. Talk to your consultant or your nurse specialist. That is what they're there for. Or contact us. Learning about your condition. That's part of what you're here for. So make the most of it. Grill any of us here that are from Amend or from any of the patient support networks that you have any contact with at all. grill them. They won't mind. We love being asked questions because it makes us feel really useful. We quite like that. Knowledge is power. Become an active participant in your journey. I'm sure all of you have already realised that to some extent you'll be more expert than a lot of people that you deal with. And in some ways that can be really frustrating. But in other ways it can give you a lot of autonomy and can make you feel quite empowered when you have information that you can use to make decisions. Facing fears does help manage them. Attend information days and working with your team, which I've already talked a bit about before. And this can be complicated, but you are the central member of your team. You're the key person in it. You're not there to look after your team or your consultant. Don't worry about their feelings. Yeah? Be clear what you want from your appointments. I'm sure you've all gone in for an appointment thinking, okay, I'm going to ask this, and I want to know the answer to that. And then you come out and you feel in that sort of fug where you think, I'm not really sure what they did say. Get really good at writing notes. If you need to take a scribe with you, take someone who can take notes for you, because it is hard when you're anxious to process information and take it in. Establish good lines of communication. My handy hint is whenever you go for an appointment, say, when will I get the results from this? How will I get them? Who will I talk to about them? What happens next? How will they contact me? Now, part of the reason I'm saying that is about trying to minimise the amount of uncertainty you're having to carry in your lives, which is already a lot. So if you can get some clear, practical information under your belt, go for it, okay? If they can give you answers to those questions, that's one thing you don't have to be worrying about. Reward yourself. This, honestly, I cannot tell you how appointments can be got to through a little bit more easily with the reward of doing something really nice afterwards. You might have to brace your bank balances a bit in that regard, but many an appointment has been got to and got through with the lure of a nice meal or a shopping expedition afterwards, okay? We're very basic at one level, okay? So reward yourself. Say, go me, I got to that appointment, now I get to do the nice thing, okay? Help others help you. People don't always know how to help. People might want to help, but they don't know how. You're going to have to tell them. It's a really good way of learning to be assertive. If that's been a bit of a difficult one for you, having this is a great opportunity to learn to be a bit more assertive. Work out from the start, like I said before, who's good for what. Aunt Jenny might be good for dropping round a cake or a meal. She might be absolutely the last person you want to talk to if you're feeling rubbish. Okay? Discard Aunt Jenny as someone you want to have to cry on the shoulder of, but say to her, could you bring me round a meal on Thursday? She'll love that. She'll feel good, you'll feel good. It's win-win, okay? Let your family and friends know how you are. Again, it's okay to say to them, I'm not doing so good today, and this is why. You will work out those who are able to hear that and those who won't. Help your employer understand your condition. There's lots of laws and lots of rights we have in place in this country to support you when you're going through treatment. So talk to us, talk to other people about if you're having difficulties at work, talk to your employer about how they can help you with your work. This is back to being assertive. Start to get good about what you need and what you don't need from the people around you. Find your tribe. This is why you're here. We're all sort of part of this tribe together. It's part of not feeling alone. We like to belong. As human beings, we like to belong in groups, in tribes. We gravitate towards each other. It provides understanding when many other people won't really know exactly what you're going through. And it's bearing the difficulties with you, because chances are if you join up with a group like Amend or ACC, that someone somewhere will get it in a way that might be harder to find in the rest of your life. And also, it's quite nice to be able to offer support too. You might be the recipient of support at one point, and it can feel really good to say to someone else, you know what, I've been through that. This is what helped me. This is what made a difference to me. and I'm just putting in there who we are. You know, when you're living with a condition like this, it's about accepting it's not just you living with it. Your partner's living with it too, and your family is living with it. And you will find ways of muddling through with that together.